So they kept screaming. They kept repeating the same similar screams up on the mountain or between the mountain high. And then there were like two huge ones that seemed to have flanked me on each side. And what they would do is when they would scream, there was mostly the one on my left side, when this thing would scream, it was like in competition with the others. And it screamed so loud, it was, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, if I hadn't heard it, I'd think, yeah, dude, sure, it was loud. No, this is like louder than an M16 report. But it kept going and going.
In this episode of Bigfoot Society, I talked to Joe Morris, who is an outdoorsman, wildlife photographer, and more in the great state of Alaska. Joe shares some pretty intense Bigfoot encounters, including one by a glacier in Wrangell-St. Elias National Park, and being surrounded by screaming Sasquatches in Chugach National Forest as well. It's an episode that you really don't want to miss. But before we get to it, please take a minute to do something that's free for me. Subscribe to Bigfoot Society on the platform you're on. And also make sure that you're both subscribed on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. And please share this episode and the show with all your friends. Doesn't cost a thing, and it helps us get to the moon. And trust me, Bigfoot Society is going to the moon. And as always, we don't have a catchphrase, so let's get right into it and get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, got the privilege of talking to Mr. Joe Morris from out there in the bush in Alaska tonight. How's it going, Joe?
It's going well. Right now, I'm in Wrangell-St. Elias National Park. It's the biggest national park in the United States. It's 14,000 square miles.
And that's over by the Yukon, right? Kind of?
We're below the Yukon. We're between, we're in the middle of nowhere. That's why nobody knows us. So McCarthy, Alaska is the little tiny town that's inside this park. And if you want to Google it, that's the only thing. It's the only way you're going to find me.
Gotcha. So how remote are you right now away from is it you're way out in the bush is what it sounds like? Yeah,
I am. Yes. If you wanted to look at a map, I'm 325 miles from Anchorage. And I don't know how far from Valdez, but those are the two reference points. So yeah, I'm on the bush, way out in the bush.
Doing anything fun out there?
A lot of hiking, looking around, doing photography. We got a lot of bears this year.
Okay.
So it's mating season, and don't really want to be around them right now.
Yeah, probably not. Watch your back. But it sounds like you've had some really interesting encounters in that park, and I'd love to talk to you about it. So tell me what kind of things you run across out there.
Well, we have all kinds of bears and moose, and there's actually something that's more rare, I think, than a Sasquatch, and it's called a glacier bear. Really? And I saw one. So it crawled up on me. I was not being quiet at all, and I had a campfire, and it come up and looked at me. Scared the crap out of me. I didn't know what it was. Anyway, other than that, I've seen one Sasquatch within 40 yards in the sunlight, as clear as if you were standing there. What happened is, well, I can tell you the whole story. You want me to start from the beginning?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so I was working at a lodge in McCarthy, Alaska. Not hard to find out which one it is. I prefer, I don't know what to say. I don't really want the attention drawn to the lodge. It has nothing to do with it. But I happened to be working there. And it was late, probably August, maybe July, I can't remember. And a friend of mine works here. And he we were just burnt out because it's a lot of work. It's only open for a certain amount of time, then you got to close it down, open it again next year. So we were wiped, and I said, hey, man, I'm going up to the toe. I don't want to walk. I'm going to grab my truck. You want to go? And he's like, yeah. So the toe is the end of the Root Glacier, and the Root Glacier is spelled R-O-O-T, and it's the glacier that happens to be about 1.5 miles from where I'm sitting. So anyway, we run up there, and you can hear it melting, and once in a while you'll see calves, and, it's cool to watch. It's pretty. And it's cooler because it's summertime, and you got wind coming off the ice. So we were on the way up there, going slow, and I'm in this old beat-up Toyota. And both of us have done this trail a million times. So we're going up this trail, and I'm going really slow, just in case there might be somebody or bears jump out or whatever, because we're out in the bush. And I'm cruising along, and I come up just to a tiny rise, not really a hill. But as I do, I see this black head, and it's smoothly crossing in front of us. It was going to. The way it was moving, it was smooth. It was not like a bear walks, a moose walks. Nothing walks that smooth. And I immediately got an ice cream headache. And I said, it's a Bigfoot. And my buddy wasn't even paying attention. He's like, what? I stopped, and I said, look, dude, I think that's a Bigfoot. And it walked behind the hill, the slight rise. So all we could see was like, I don't know, most of its head as it floated by. And it looked like it was floating. So I get up there with the truck. I'm like, well, we're going to go find it. So I come up over the rise, and he's not there. Whatever it was, wasn't there. So I told Neil, don't slam the car door. So I pull up into the brush a little bit and stop. We open the truck doors, and I'm always armed with a 10mm SIG. And he happened to have a AR-15, which isn't great for bear, but it makes a lot of noise. So I said, hey, if you go down about 60 yards and start going in the bush, once you go in, I'll go in, and maybe you'll chase it to me, whatever it is. I thought it was a wounded bear. I did not. Last thing on my mind was really a Sasquatch. I'd never seen one, don't really care about them. And he did. So when he walked in, I started walking in, and I walked in just past the brush line, kind of, and I stopped in the shadows. I've hunted my whole life. Neil, he kind of walked in and made all kinds of noise stomping in there, and he stopped, and I heard him kind of make this weird noise, and he gasped, and I looked over at him automatically, and I had already scanned the area looking, but I heard him gasp, and I looked over, and before my eyes could get to his area, I realized there was a person standing there about 40 feet away. To me, this thing looked about 6'5". It was well built, had the V-shaped body like a linebacker or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't looking at me. It appeared that it was looking, it was not looking, it wasn't facing me. Its body basically was facing 3/4 away from me. So I was seeing the left shoulder, ear, back. You could see the leg, but I couldn't see its face. And it was like almost doing it on purpose is what I got right away. Wouldn't look at me. Kind of glanced at me. And when it did, its eye, I couldn't believe it. The eyeball had a little bit of yellow, like our white eye area would be. But this thing, it's sunlight. My glasses I have these automatic darkening glasses, and they've darkened down. And I look at this thing's eyes, and the pupils are enormous. I mean, it's all pupil. And I'm thinking, how can this thing see in the sunlight? Even an owl's eyes close down quite a lot. to regular in the sunlight. It's not like they're totally blown out like they do at night. And that was shocking. And then the next thing that freaked me out, well, I was completely in shock, kind of. And the next thing that freaked me out is the way it ran. This thing took off with no gaining of speed like, a bear would or a human. This thing took off from 0 to 60. It appeared to be 60 miles an hour instantly. And it went about 75 yards, jumped over some trees that were down, and then took off again like 60 miles an hour. And that was it. That was the end of it. So I walk back to the truck, and Neil comes back, and he's all excited. He's like, "Hey, I saw a Bigfoot. I saw a Bigfoot." And I'm like, "What'd you see?" And he says, "I saw a human-shaped arm, except for it was too long. And this thing was walking or running, and he saw the arm swing." Well, that's not what I saw. I saw the whole thing, and except for its face. And I don't know what gender or whatever, female. So anyway, it didn't really last long. It was gone. So we stood by the truck, talked about it a little, and we actually drove out to the tow again. Kept going, hung out, and come back. Looked around, there wasn't nothing there. So that was that. That was 2017. And it didn't keep me out of the woods. There was no violent encounter or whatever.
You were scared to go back in the woods. It sounds like you're pretty comfortable with the woods.
Oh, hell yeah. No, I go back in there.
Yeah.
I did then. It's not like I'm going to see another one.
Well,
I'm 55 years old. Well, back then, I think I was 50 or whatever. Yeah, 50 is about right. I'd never seen one in my life. Chance of seeing another one are 0. And then I saw another one 5 years later.
Right.
And it was enormous.
The first encounter that you had, did you notice anything? You saw the back of it, sounded like. Did you notice anything about the shape of the head at all? Anything around that part of the Bigfoot?
All I saw is when my son is 6'7". So in my mind, this thing's a couple inches shorter. Its shoulders are probably the same width, maybe a little bit more. And it was very muscular. As far as its head, I'm prior military. And if you take people and you shave their heads like they're in the service, or even really short hair, you can see the shape of their head. So this thing's hair wasn't that long on its head. I would say maybe 2 to 3 inches at the most. And its head was like a human. It was a human. In my mind, this was a person standing there. And I had a gun in my hand. So I stepped out and I saw the brown fur, and I've been around Alaska a long time. So I immediately drew my pistol. And then I realized what I was looking at. And I thought in my mind, immediately, this is a person. So I put my weapon away immediately and looked at it.
I'm guessing the immediate reaction to pull your pistol would be because you see that color, you think it's bear, something like that. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Everybody, well, I can't say everybody. In my opinion, the people that spend a lot of time out in the outdoors here in Alaska, they do it armed.
Sure.
You look at all the villagers, when they leave their villages, they're armed. So it's natural to be armed here. If you don't, you're kind of being bear bait.
Absolutely. From things I've seen about Alaska, you don't get many chances to mess around, for sure. You get maybe one chance and that's it. So
that's right. You make one mistake out here, especially when you're alone, like I go, and you're done. It's over. So you just got to be careful. So anyway, so I know, you want me to talk about the next one, the 5 year later thing?
Real quick before we get to that, that area you were in, were there ever any stories you heard of other sightings, or was it a pretty unique thing for the area that you were in?
Well, I didn't, of course, this has started me on my big Sasquatch
Sure.
adventure of the internet, trying to find information. So, beforehand, I didn't really care about them. I never heard about them. I'd heard about this thing called the Acoustica, but it wasn't a Bigfoot. It's the otter man.
Exactly.
So I'm inland, right now. I'm inland. I'm about a mile and a half from where I was. And I'm inland 120 miles from the Gulf or the coast. So there's no Acoustica here. That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
They're on the coast and stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, let's continue.
No is the answer.
Yeah.
So afterwards, yes, absolutely. I found out lots of things about this area.
5 years later, then you had another thing happen to you, which is totally unexpected because you're only expecting maybe one in your lifetime.
Yes, correct. Yeah, I mean, it's not realistic to think you're going to see another one. So anyway, yeah, I saw another one last year. And then the other one is I saw a disappearing stump in the same area.
Interesting. A disappearing stump.
Yes. And I can explain that one.
Yeah.
So I've had back problems and they're service related. So I've had, treatments on my back. Unfortunately, it left me unable to walk for a while. So when I was able to walk, I walked all over the place like the doctor and the physical therapist said. So I'd walk from about where I am down to the tow road, walk in there, walk all over the place on uneven surfaces because that's what the doctor wanted me to do. And then when I was couldn't do it anymore, I'd walk back home, back here. And I did that day after day after day after day. It's just physical therapy. I have to. If I want to walk, I have to do it. So I walk this trail over and over every day. And in Alaska, this time of year, it doesn't really get dark. It's more twilight. So I walk this trail and I'm headed towards the toe. And I've looked at this same trail and everything in it a whole bunch of times. So everything's basically memorized. And as I walk up, and I'm a hunter, photographer, so I can tell you what's not really supposed to be in place. If I saw a place and something changed, I could pretty much tell you what it was. My brain will tell me there's something changed. Anyway, so I'm walking down this trail, and I'm looking to the right for no reason, and I see this big black stump. Now, the toe of the glacier is where the glacier is receding, meaning nothing can grow there quick enough that would be a 3-foot stump or more. That's impossible.
Gotcha.
Unless the thing's petrified. And I've walked this area a whole bunch and I've never seen it. So I stop and I look at it and I light up a cigarette and I'm thinking, I'm tired anyway because I'm hurting. And I look at this stump and I'm thinking, well, shit, I'm going to go sit on it. What is this thing? It's weird. It shouldn't be here. And I walk towards it and my feet get tangled in the brush. I look down, get them untangled and keep going. And I look up and it's gone.
Oh boy.
And one thing I hadn't told you is while I was watching this stump before I walked towards it, it opens its eyes. So on the side of the stump, its eyes opened.
Really?
And I was shocked. I'm like, what the F is this? So I thought whatever it was would get up and run away. That's why I was standing there slowly smoking this cigarette, looking at this thing. And it was it wasn't far at all. I don't know how many feet. It was a ways, I'm a bow hunter. It would be an easy shot, so 25, 30 yards. So I'm like, well, and then it closed its eyes and it turned into a, you couldn't tell it wasn't anything else. I'm like, well, I'm going to go find out what it is. So I got a gun on, no big deal. So I walk towards it, get stuck in the brush a little bit, look up, it's gone. No sound at all. Hadn't rained in a couple of days. And I'm like, well, if I walk in there, it sounds like I'm, walking through a bunch of crushed up peanut shells or something. Boom. So I'm like, well, this is weird. So I walk back in there anyway, and I look around for 15 to 20 minutes. I look up in the trees. I look at the ground. I'm fairly good at tracking. Nothing's disturbed. And I'm thinking, wow, what in the world? So I walk back to the road or the trail. I walk down to the toe, do my thing, and walk home. And as I walk home, I use the same trail. And I keep looking to my left, which is where that area was. And I see nothing. No big deal. So I go home and, next day I get up and I have to go walking. So eventually I go walking, and this day it's later. So it's probably 11 o'clock, something like that. And I go walking because I put it off. It hurts. I don't want to do it, but I do it. So I go out there and the same trail, and I keep looking to the right because that's where I saw the disappearing stump. And I'm walking along looking for this stump looking thing. And I stop because something tells my brain, well, something's out of place. So I look and I'm studying the area, and I hurt really bad at that point. And I'm scanning the area, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to spend any much time on it. And I'm about to leave, and I look over, and behind this spruce tree that's about 12 feet high is, it's like a traditional Bigfoot standing there. Except for this was jet black. You couldn't see anything, light coming off it. And it was still a little bit light. It's bluish light here. And it didn't move. I couldn't see its face. I didn't know if it was looking at me or looking the other way. I assumed it was looking at me. And it was enormous. It was 12 feet tall, 5.5 feet wide. And it's like my brain didn't register what it was until it did. And it was like, oh, shit. So I raised my right hand and I said, hey, big brother. And I turned and I walked away and walked down the toe and did my thing.
Wow.
And eventually I came back because it's really the only way to get home this way. So I come back and I'm freaked out. I'm looking behind me and stuff, but it didn't seem to bother it. I got this feeling that it was watching the trail. It didn't give a crap about me. So anyway, I walk back that area and I'm really worried. And I keep looking all over the place, especially to my left. And I see nothing. That was the end of it.
I find it really interesting. The reaction you had when you saw it was, to raise your hand and say, hey, big brother. Like, what was it that you think that made you do that reaction? Was it something you'd heard previously, or is it just came out of you?
No, because in 2017, I went on the rabbit hole for information about what I'd seen because I didn't know what I'd seen. During that time, I'd learned that if you get fairly close to these things, and in my opinion, since I saw one the first time and I've listened to the native tales and learnings, they say they're people. So somewhere I heard, hey, that's proper greeting. You should say, hello, big brother, and leave. Or you should say more to it. But for me, that was all I could do. And that's what I did.
When you were doing research into this, the years prior, were you going, directly to those that you may have known around you, or was this, things online or
Both. Mostly online. I know natives down throughout the state, but mostly down by the Copper River area at the basin. And the two people I know well there, it's a man and a female, and the man is not from Alaska, and the lady is from Western Alaska. So her knowledge would be limited to Alaska, of course, but more specified in that area. I did talk to the gentleman, and he did not like talking about it. In general, he doesn't care, and he'll tell me areas that he just cannot sleep overnight because we both camp a lot. He does more than I do now, but we'd always be on our rigs, camping or hunt, whatever. Always out of town, and so he'd tell me the areas he couldn't sleep in, which I find weird because the guy can, he's just an outdoorsman and a native. He can park his rig and sleep anywhere, kind of like I do. But there are basically 3 places down there that I cannot sleep in. I've tried, but you can't.
Are those areas you can mention, or they're just random areas out in the bush?
No, I can mention them. I don't really want to get specific because I don't want to mess with the people in the area.
Oh, yeah, definitely not. Yeah.
So, but one of them, I didn't see anything, but I've heard things, and then the other 2, they're just creepy, dude. I mean, I can go anywhere, sleep anywhere. It doesn't bother me. There are 2 places other than my favorite place that are just creepy as hell. It's a deep, dark rainforest. There's absolutely no light because the foliage grows over, and if you usually have cloud cover, and if you get a moonless night, it's like being in a cave.
Wow. You mentioned you've heard some interesting things in certain areas. Have you ever heard like vocalizations, things like that?
Oh, yes.
Like what kind of things have you heard?
I have heard quite a few things. The strangest thing is I was down by this place I call it the Grayling Pond. And it's probably 18 miles from a little village. And back off the main road there, I don't know how many miles. It's little logging trails you follow. And if you don't know them, you're going to get lost. Anyway, so I'm parked next to this Grayling Pond. And I got one of those solo rangers going. It's a fire pit. And I'm sitting on a lawn chair kind of thing, camp chair, with my feet up on a table with a headlight on, and I'm reading a book. And it's nice out, kind of misty, and it's a rainforest, so it's doable. And you get used to it. So I'm sitting there reading this book, and I hear these, owls. They're not uncommon. But first I hear ravens. And I'm like, why are ravens out this time of night? So they shut up, and I went back to reading. And then I heard owls. And the owls, they didn't sound right. There was too many of them. If you hear an owl, it's alone. It may have somebody else with it, another owl, but it's in another area hunting, just like it is. They don't hunt together. So I'm like, well, that's strange. There was probably 3 of them. And I thought, well, that's weird. Maybe it's breeding season or something. So the hoots don't seem correct. And then one of the hoots, and I'm here sitting back reading the book, not really caring, paying attention. And this hoot turned into like the loudest scream from a woman you will ever hear in your life. And it was ridiculously long. And I put the book away and I looked around because I'm out in the middle of nowhere. anything could walk up and eat me. I don't have a fence or anything around me. And I'm like, what the hell was that? So I sat there for a while and I thought, well, I'm going to listen to this. And another one does it. And another one does it. And I'm like, wow. And they're not that far away. They're like, to me, they were like on the backside. Between me and the sound is a grayling pond, an opener, it's kind of an open area. It's tundra. And then it goes up on the side of a mountain. And to me, they sounded like they were way back up the mountain, but they were really loud. So I thought, well, that's weird. And I was a little freaked out. So I sat there and, nothing really happened. And then the ravens kicked off again. And then, I heard coyotes. And I thought, this is really weird. There is no way this is going on this time of night. There's nothing out here to draw them to where I am. At the time, there was rivers, two rivers, small rivers I had to ford to get to where I was, and they were packed with salmon. That's a great time to go camping because nothing's going to mess with you. They go eat salmon. Anyway, eventually these things are screaming. They sound like coyotes, and then they turn into people yelling. And then there's multiple ones going off at one time. And then I hear this one, and it is so loud, it cannot be explained. It shook my entire body. It fired off with this crazy scream like a lady. It was really, really loud. So it's this, I don't even know how to explain it. It's this piercing scream like a woman that's really in trouble. And then it turned into kind of a man being, murdered. And then it turned into like this animalistic scream. And it was almost all at once. It's really hard to explain. So I'm out there in the woods and it's dark. If I shut my light off, I can't see anything. And I'm like, wow, I think it's time to go. So I load my chair into the truck and, do my little, make sure everything's picked up. Well, the fire pit's too hot to do anything to. I'm not worried about it. It's a rainforest. It's not going to burn. You're not going to have a forest fire there. So I get in the truck, and the way my SUV's made, I can look backwards with the doors open. And I have a chair back there where I can just chill out in and read. So I was. I'm like, well, at least I'll be in here. So I shut the two doors and I had the window open. And I'm like, okay, I want to listen to this. So they kept screaming. They kept repeating the same similar screams up on the mountain or between the mountain high. And then there were like two huge ones that seemed to have flanked me on each side. And what they would do is when they would scream, it was mostly the one on my left side. When this thing would scream, it was like in competition with the others. And it screamed so loud. It was, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, if I hadn't heard it, I'd think, yeah, dude, you're sure it was loud. No, this is like louder than an M16 report. But it kept going and going. And finally, the one on the right started. So I got these two gigantic things. I can't see shit. And they're hollering like nothing I've ever heard. Just, it's insane. So I'm like, well, I think it's time to leave again. So I crawl over and I'm about to shut the hatch and just crawl in the front seat. I'm not going outside. And then the one on the left started laughing. And it was this, I can't produce it, but it was this deep, truly laugh. And it started like, oh, Well, but then it turned into like this demonic laughing. And it was incredibly loud and very deep. And then the one on the right did it. So I'm between these two things. And I'm thinking, I should be terrified. But I'm not. And I started laughing. Along with these two guys or whatever. And I thought, there's something wrong here. I got to get the hell out of here. So I listened a little longer, and I'd been there maybe 40 minutes at the most, something like that. I don't know. Since they started talking. Oh, they talked too. And I shut the hatch, and I'm like, I can't deal with this. I'm going somewhere else. I'm not super freaked out. So I crawl in the front, and I drive towards this glacier that's hard to get to. And it's kind of behind a ridge, the same ridge I think they were yelling from, but it's kind of on the backside. So I park there, and I get out, and, head up peeing. So I go out in the woods, and there's no woods now. It's all open glacier scrub. So I can see. And I get out, look around with my light, do my thing, and listen. And I don't hear anything but the glacier ice moving behind me, which is absolutely normal. It's about some of them are the size of a car, some of them the size of your fist. And when the wind blows, they bump into each other. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to sleep here tonight, and I'll go deal with the fire pit in the morning. So I'm tired. So I crawl back in my SUV and go to bed. Make sure all the doors are locked. Go to bed. There's nobody out there. There's no human beings out there. And sometime during the night, I wake up and I hear this sound of something bouncing off the top of my SUV, off the roof. I'm thinking, what in the hell? And I because it's a coastal area, coastal Alaska, I'm thinking about seagulls, and they're dropping clams on me, trying to break them open. And then I realize it's the middle of the night. They ain't going to be out. So I listen, and I hear these, they're basically small pebbles. They're getting bounced off the top of my truck. And I'm not scared, and I actually didn't care. I heard that if you let them do their thing, they get bored and leave. But If you interact with them, they like that. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. They just want to be interacted with. So I left them, and I went to sleep, and everything was fine in the morning. And then in the morning, I drove over, picked up my fire pit, cleaned it out, and left.
Wow. You mentioned you heard them talking as well?
Yes.
Can you describe what kind of talking that you heard?
All right. So I've been in Alaska 12 years, and I've worked remote villages, native villages. And there's Yupik, and I can't think of the other one. Anyway, they're real common here. And Yupik language, where I used to hang out and work, that was common. So Yupik, it's hard to, it almost sounds Asian, but it's its own thing. So these big things were sounding like they wanted to speak in Yupik. They'd started, but it was like, man, I've never heard that. It's a different cadence. It's super fast, and they sound really angry. That's the only way I can explain it.
That is fast.
And I only heard that from two guys, those two males. I believe they're males. I didn't see anything. I couldn't. But the two that were closer to me, the big laughing things,
right?
They were the ones that I heard speak. And I think they were talking to each other. Not long. That was right before I left. And I'm like, no. So anyway, I have heard speaking, it's people or whatever, speaking in areas that it's impossible. There's nobody there. And it's always this Yupik sounding thing.
Wow.
usually women and children. They laugh and, they say their thing. And it sounds like they're picking berries and they're really happy. But, I know there's nobody there. I can go walk over the, I'd already walked past this place. It's glacier. It's like a moon out here in some places. You can't hide. There's nothing there. So you walk past, sit down. I'm a photographer, so I get ready to start taking pictures, and I'm like, you hear you picture. And there's nobody there. There's nobody out here.
Would you ever go back to that area that you said it was Grayling Lake or
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'll go back. I plan to go back here probably next month.
And that's the Wrangell-St. Elias National Park area. It's the same area as we were talking
That's
before.
Correct.
Wow, that's incredible.
So I'm in the Wrangell-St. Elias National Park right now. And I'm indoors because it's raining. I don't want to go out and slop around. But, tomorrow I'll be out to the same exact place I saw these two Sasquatch. It's not far, and I still have to walk.
Wow, and you're headed out there tomorrow. That's nuts. Wow. That's incredible.
I was out there yesterday.
Oh, you were? Wow.
Well, it's just, I walk it all the time. And, people say, well, they get this weird feeling. And I do a little bit when I'm out there, but it's completely not. I can't explain it. It's not threatening at all. It's just, I don't think they give a crap about me. I just happen to be in the area.
Just happen to be there. Yeah.
I always walk alone. I'm always alone out here. And it's by choice. Because if I have a dog, it's loud. I can't get my wildlife photos. A lot of people are bored because you have to sit around quietly, in a homemade blind or whatever. And
yeah.
It's considered boring for a lot of people. So what was your last question?
No problem. Have you heard anything that would be similar to anything that sounded like ape or a monkey or anything weird? Sometimes people say they hear stuff like hoots or gibbons, things like that. Yeah,
I have heard the hoot from a gigantic gibbon or whatever they call them, the things that scream, little monkeys that make ridiculous sounds. It did sound kind of like that a couple times, and I've heard the hooting. They don't do it over and over. It's like you'll hear it in the background, and it never meant anything to me. I don't care. It doesn't. I just don't care. It doesn't register. It's not a threat. It's nothing. I can't take a picture of it.
Right.
I'm not going to eat it.
Have you ever considered taking an audio recorder out with you when you go to these areas?
Funny you may ask. I just got one. So
I love it. It's
all
go
right.
time.
I'll be out there next month, and I'm actually going to camp out my favorite place. They happen to like the stream, and we'll see what happens. I don't think they care about me. I'm in the area. To me, it's like they're having a potlatch. You know what that is?
Remind me. I think I know the gist of what you're saying, but I'd love to hear about it.
So a potlatch or a powwow to maybe a lesser extent.
Mm-hmm.
The natives, it's basically a celebration, and it can be for different things. Lord knows what they're celebrating, but that's what it reminds me of.
Fascinating.
They're definitely having fun.
If you happen to get some interesting audio, definitely reach out. I would love to hear it, and I can get you in touch with some guys that can really analyze it as well. That's
what I was looking for. And the whole thing is, I can get the great videos. I can take pictures of the footprints. I can record the audio. That'd be nothing. It's just fun for me. I don't care. I'll play it for a friend of mine, and then, hey, you ever heard this in the woods? But my life doesn't. I don't care. You know what I mean?
I totally
life.
get it. I'm looking over your email real quick, and you had mentioned in the email, I think it was the Chugach National Forest.
Yeah, Chugach. Yeah, it's below
Chugach.
me.
Is that the that's the area where you had mentioned before with like the screaming and the laughing, etc.?
Correct.
Oh, very interesting.
And I've seen some giant footprints down there.
Really?
Huge. Oh, it's ridiculous. I left. And then I did see some other tracks down there that I was a fishing guide, and I don't want my clients freaking out, so I squished them all out.
Oh, you would wipe away the tracks so you wouldn't freak out your clients.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's a lot of money to fly out there and have fun.
That's incredible.
You don't want to fly out there and say, look at it and go, what the hell's that? You can't say, I don't know. You're in the bush. They're with you. It's a one-on-one situation. They're going to make sure you're there to make sure they live through this. They can have fun, do whatever they want, as long as it's legal. But, it's me keeping the bears off them and showing them where to fish.
Sure. It makes sense.
It's really boring sometimes. I mean, I'd rather be out taking pictures somewhere.
In that forest, does it kind of bump up against the Kenai Peninsula?
No.
No? Okay.
No. When you get a chance, Google the Copper River.
Okay.
And if you go down by, there's a place this is where I saw the tracks near. It's called the Night Island. And it's within the actual Copper River. And
Night Island?
That's a weird place down there. Yeah, Night Island. And that'll bring you into the Copper River Basin with Google.
What is so weird about that area?
Oh, lots of reports from some locals about something like a circular pool of light, and it shoots up in the air and it's gone.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So you can't make up.
Yeah, I know.
And then the footprints I saw were huge, and I'm like, I'm not going looking. I just got in my truck and left. I saw a humongous bear out there. I assume it was natural. I've seen plenty of bears, hundreds and probably thousands of them. 16 up in it, I've seen 16 in a day. That's not a big deal. But this bear, if we were standing on a pavement and this thing walked past me, it would be, I'm 5'10". It would be as tall as my back, or its back, my head would be, or maybe I'd be a little shorter.
Stuff you don't mess with for sure.
And I actually talked to a local law enforcement guy, a federal forest service guy. And I told him what I saw and where I saw it, and he laughed and he's like, yeah, they get really big. He's like, usually people don't see them from that area, so congratulations.
You win.
Right.
Yeah, you win the prize. Yeah.
That's not what I'm looking for, man.
Right, yeah.
I'm like, is there a third species of bear out there? That's what I asked him. He's like, no. They just get, they keep growing if they have food. So,
wow.
Anyway.
Joe, incredible accounts. Thank you so much for spending some time chatting about this. This has been incredible.
Oh, you're welcome.
Please, if
I hear anything else,
yes,
I'll send it to you.
Fantastic. And yeah, I definitely hope to hear from you in the future, but thank you so much, Joe, for chatting tonight.
Oh, you're welcome.
Here at Bigfoot Society, our goal is to provide a platform for those that have encountered Bigfoot to share their encounter in a safe and respected environment. But we need to hear your story. If you've experienced something that you just can't explain, please send me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. then we can start the conversation. And I know a lot of you have not shared your encounter at all. It's been 20 years, and it's time that you get this off your chest, and then you can get some well-deserved rest, because I know you haven't been sleeping. I understand what you're going through, and I appreciate every one of you listening.